I'm back. Okay, so last one on the fractions, subtraction. So there's a little extra thing to think about in subtraction, nothing major. We'll get right to it. So just like addition, we have to have our common denominators. And ideally, we'll want a least common denominator. So let's take a look at this first example here. 7/3 minus 1/5. So notice 7/3, huh? Well, what's the common denominator of thirds and fifths? Well, again, those are two prime numbers, so let's just go ahead and multiply them together, and we'll get 15. So what do we multiply the 3 by? 5, right. 5 times 5, top and bottom. And the reason we're doing that, remember, is because what's 5 divided by 5? Right, 1. Any number divided by itself is 1. So all we're really doing here is multiplying by the value of 1, 5/5. And what does multiplying by 1 ever do? Right, not really much. It stays the same. So that's why we're allowed to do this. It kind of, I like to say it changes the look of the fraction, but not the actual value of the fraction. So anyways, the 5, what are we going to multiply it by? Right, the 3. So times 3 times 3. And now what do we have? Well, multiply straight across, right? Straightforward. So 7 times 5 is 35 over 3 times 5 is 15. Minus 1 times 3 is 3 over 5 times 3 is 15. So now when we go ahead and subtract here, 35 minus 3 is 33. What happens to the denominator? Right, it stays the same. Addition and subtraction, the denominator stays the same. That's why it has to be common. So 15ths, 33/15ths, and we're not done yet, are we? So we have to reduce this fraction. We might even be able, it's top heavy, isn't it? It's an improper fraction, so we also have to change it to a mixed number. Let's do that first. I mean, you could do either one. You could go ahead and reduce it by what number? What goes into 33 and 15? Now, see, that's the thing. It's large numbers, so reducing it could be a little tough. So we could just go ahead and change it to the mixed number now, and that'll make that numerator a smaller number to work with. So we could also say 15 goes into 33 how many times? Right, it would go in 2 times. 15 twice is 30. How much is left over? Right again, 3 over 15. Notice 3/15 can be reduced, can't it? What are we going to divide both of them by? What's a common number that divides into both 3 and 15? Right, 3 does. See, we're dividing by 3 over 3. What's dividing by 1? Stays the same thing, right? So we end up with 2, our whole number. 3 divided by 3, 1. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 2 and 1/5. Now, watch if we do it the other way. If instead we went ahead and tried to reduce it first, we would have divided by, let's change that color back to orange. Keep the pattern alive, right? Divided by 3, and we would have gotten 11/5. Well, how many times does 5 go into 11? Right, twice. And what would be left over? You got it, 1. So we get the same answer, 2 and 1/5. Okay, in this next example, a little bit more to it because we've got whole numbers to deal with, and we've got some larger numbers that we're doing the, sorry about that, doing some larger numbers with the denominators. So 12 and 18. We could multiply them together, or we could go ahead and take a look at what is 12 as a prime number. Well, 12 in prime numbers would be, what's going on here? I keep getting the text. Sorry about that. 12 in prime numbers would be 2 times 2 times 3. 2 times 2 is 4 times 3 is 12, right? And 18, well, that would be 2 times 3 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 6 is 9. So if we think about the way we did this on the other video, we realize that they both have a 3. This one has a 3 that this one doesn't have. So multiply it by 3. They both have a 2, but this one doesn't have the extra 2. Multiply it by a 2. Now you've got the same thing for both of them. What is that number? Well, you could do the 18 times 2 is 36, or 12 times 3 is 36. So that's the number we end up multiplying with to get 36ths as our common denominator. So we went ahead and multiplied by the 3 here, so let's do it there, and the 2 here. So we have 15 36 and 22 36. Well, subtracting now, does anybody see a problem? Yeah, 15 minus 22 is going to be negative. You don't switch it around to do 22 minus 15, because that's not the problem. It's 5 and 5/12 minus 2 and 11/18. And so that's what we're working over here. So this is where I got to ask you something. Can I borrow something from you? I'll bet you remember, right? What we want to do is we want to borrow, let's get a blue, from the whole number. So we're going to take one whole number from that. And then we're going to add that whole number to this. But realize we're not adding 1 to it. We're adding 1 as a fraction with 36ths with the same common denominator. So one way to do that would be to add 36 36ths. That's a 1, right? And we have to add with common denominators. So you always end up choosing the same denominator over itself to add on that extra 1. And the trick is, the shortcut is, just add the denominator to the numerator when you borrow 1. That's all you're doing, because there's that numerator right there, the same as the denominator, because that common denominator idea. So anyways, let's move on here. So I'm going to write it a little lower. Let's take this, write it down here. So 36 plus 15, what do we get there? 6 and 5 is 11, so carry the 1, 3 and 1, and another 1 would be 51 36. Down here, we still have 22 36. So now we can do that subtraction. And now we can figure out, okay, what's 51 minus 22? We know it's going to be over, let's go red. We know it's going to be over 36, right? Here, 11, 1 minus, we have to borrow again, right? There's that same idea of borrowing. So borrow from that, make that 11. 11 minus 2 is going to be 9. 4 minus 2 is going to be 2. And we have 29 36. Is that our answer? No, don't forget the whole numbers, right? So what's 4 minus 2? It's not the 5 minus 2 we borrowed from that. 4 minus 2 is 2. And there's your answer. So I hope this helps out, folks. I know you've seen this before, but a good review of it at the beginning of the year is always helpful. And let's start with the charge. Right on, folks. You guys have a good one, and I will see you soon. That is, as soon as I figure out how to turn